Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dr. Afzal Haq, the office bearers of the NED Alumni Association, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me thank the organizers of this conference for extending an invitation to me to come and share my thoughts with you. I attach a lot of importance to the NED University, which is one of the oldest institutions of engineering in Pakistan, and deserve the support of its alumni, which is the only continuing link between the institution and its alma mater. The topic which I have chosen today will address the following three questions. Which topic is the science and technology for economic growth? And I'm conscious of the fact that we are already 1 hour behind schedule, so this speech I have posted on your website, so I will try to limit myself to the timing so that I don't exceed the time limit. I'll ask the following three questions this morning. Why should governments intervene and promote science, technology, and innovation? Second, is there a link between STI and economic growth? And finally, what are the factors that have retarded the spread of STI in Pakistan? I would then dwell upon the areas of emphasis for Pakistan and the challenges we are facing in the 21st century, and conclude by making some modest but obvious suggestions for reforms. Why should governments intervene and promote science, technology, and innovation as policy tools? Economists do not like government interventions on grounds of optimality, but there are very strong theoretical and empirical grounds for promoting science and technology. The first reason is the concept of public goods. Scientific discoveries have knowledge spillovers. The cost of generating knowledge may be large in the first instance, but its subsequent use imposes negligible incremental costs. The constant reuse of this knowledge or associated products, devices, techniques, patents do not deplete it. As a matter of fact, the more they are used, the more they contribute to the economy. Economists term these properties as public goods. There is no implication in the term public goods that it can be produced only by a government agency. Private sector can also supply public goods, but it does imply that if these goods are produced in the market, then we are not going to have an efficient outcome. There are other reasons, and I would not like to go into that, and you can find them in my paper. One of the major reasons is that the value of basic research is unknown, uncertain, and conjectural, and discourages private firms and individuals to undertake research to any large extent. But the governments, on the collective basis, can incur these expenditures even if the outcomes are going to be negative, because that is how science and technology advances in the world. The other reason for government intervention is that the cost of capital is to be borne by individual firms. But the banks and the financial institutions do not consider research as a viable proposition for which they can extend loans. And nobody has that much money in order to buy all the equipment, hire the individual scientists, pay them premium prices, and have those laboratories. It's just not possible. And because this is what we call as the market imperfection, the government has to intervene. So for the following reasons, which I have mentioned to you, I think nowhere in the world the research and development, science and innovation fall in the domain of the government. Even in the United States, you might know that DoD, which is the Department of Defense, is the largest single financier of research, and particularly for the dual-use research, which is both for defense purposes, but it has the civilian use. And the web itself is an outcome of a research grant which was provided by DoD. So the next question is, of course, the government should provide this. But what do we get out of this science and research as far as economic growth is concerned? And that's a very legitimate question. Now, social benefits, that's what we are interested, not private benefits. And economic growth should benefit the society, not some individuals. And those of you who are following the debate in the United States, where all the benefits of economic growth in the United States for the last two decades have accrued to the top 1% of the population, while 99% has not got any benefit from economic growth, is a matter of serious concern. Therefore, we have to focus on social benefits rather than the private benefits. And the link between the STI and economic growth has been tested empirically and found to be very robust. Economic theory, until recently, recognized technological change or innovation as exogenous or outside the system. But more recently, it has been recognized that, in fact, technology fuels the economic growth. You may have capital, you may have labor, you may have land. But if they are not used efficiently through the scientific research and innovation, your output may be declining. But the more science and the more knowledge you use, there is no diminishing returns, but there are increasing returns. A small farmer who uses fertilizer, by looking at the large farmer, will also increase its productivity. So the country as a whole benefits from the innovation of fertilizer use, first through the big farmer, and then through the small farmer, and the aggregate production really increases. That is the reason why economic theory now is of the view that diminishing returns do not happen if you have scientific innovation. And the most important breakthrough which has come in the recent years, and you're all witnesses, is the information and communication technology, ICT, which has made it possible to have abundant information, lower transaction costs, and lower barriers to entry. Inexpensive electronic or voice communication, video conferencing, technology-enabled workflows, and social networking technologies have transformed connectivity and knowledge sharing. These characteristics add up to a more efficient and competitive markets with benefit to consumers. Besides information technologies, container revolution, hub airports, low-cost cargoes, high-performance materials, biotechnology, low-cost vaccines have brought about flexible business processes. Just-in-time inventory, hyper-competitive purchasing worldwide, remote services, lower overheads, shorter turnaround time, and affordable healthcare solutions. These scientific breakthroughs have culminated to disperse the benefits to a larger segment of population. In Pakistan, for example, mobile telephones are owned by almost 75% of the population. These are used by farmers for obtaining latest information about weather, prices, and availability of goods and services, transfer money, and for many other benefits which you could not observe 5 or 6 years ago. I would just give one example to illustrate the powerful cost-benefit calculus of public research. The cumulative economic benefits from research into rice amount to $20 billion a year. Hundreds of times the cost of original investment in Erie in Philippines. The original cost was not only $2 million when Erie was established. And now every year, $20 billion of rice is produced because of this Erie rice, which is spread all through. The average yield has doubled from 1.9 tons to 3.5 tons. And those who believed in Malthusian population explosion, today there is more consumption of rice per capita despite the addition of 1 billion more people to the Earth's planet. So you can see the marvel of rice research which has led to this situation. Look at the transformative power of SCI. Korea until 1960s had a weak economy than many independent countries. Today, Korea is one of the world's 13 biggest economies with a GDP per capita of $23,000, which is almost 20 times that of Pakistan. And Korea was way behind Pakistan in the 1960s. What did it do that? The Korean policymakers went around the United States and Europe and recruited every single Korean PhD in any scientific subject, brought them at the same salary, helped them establish the laboratories and the departments of science and engineering, and lo and behold, you have a revolution as far as Korea is concerned. So all this is good news. Why are we retarding instead of going forward? Why is it that we are not doing so well? And you can hear talk shows, and I'm sure that all of you have Jadoo. You listen to Geo, and you listen to ARY, and you listen to all the talk shows, and you will find many explanations. Ye corruption hai, ye kharabi hai, ye politicians hai, yeah. But that's not the real reason. Let me, because this is a body of scientists and engineers, and you think through your mind rather through your heart, let me give you my own take why Pakistan has not done so well. There are some factors that contribute to the ecosystem of innovation and diffusion of technology, and these are all interconnected. First, you should have a quality of scientific and research institutions in your country, high quality. Second, a strong scientific and technological base. That's manpower. Third, a high quality higher education system. Number four, liaison between businesses and research centers. Number fifth, culture that encourages entrepreneurship and risk-taking. And finally, investment in research and development by public and private sectors. Let us take these 6 factors which are responsible for economic growth of other countries, and compare with Pakistan, evaluate where we stand. Let's take public scientific and research institutions. They have become parasitic. Their internal organizational structure, the selection of the leadership positions, and incentives are all flawed, and therefore they are unable to perform and contribute. Not only that the public funding is inadequate, but internal financial controls, the allocation process, and utilization of funds leave much to be desired. जो पैसे आते हैं वो सबसे पहले डीजी साहब अपने कमरे की रेनोवेशन पर और एयर कंडीशनिंग पर और इस पे लगाते हैं, रिसर्च पे कोई खर्चा नहीं होता। बड़ी बड़ी गाड़ियां खरीद लेते हैं, ट्रैवल करते हैं। So if you have that kind of leadership in your research institutions, how do you expect any sound work? Except when Dr. Norman Borlaug came up with the wheat high-yielding varieties and IRI came up, there hasn't been any single breakthrough as far as agriculture sector is concerned. India, by using BT cotton, which is now very common all over the world, has taken its cotton production from 17 million bales to 37 billion bales in 1 decade. And we, which were ahead of India as far as the cotton productivity is concerned, are still at 13 to 14 million bales because we haven't adopted the BT cotton officially. This is what our public scientific organizations are doing. Let us now go to the second factor. We have only 162 scientists per million people, and the number of technicians is even lower, which is 64 million people. Doctors हमारे यहाँ बहुत हैं, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ nurses बिल्कुल नहीं हैं. हमारे यहाँ engineers NED के पढ़े हुए और UET के पढ़े बहुत हैं, लेकिन overseers हमारे पास नहीं हैं. That is what the problem is. No country in the world has a ratio where you have more engineers and fewer para-engineers, more doctors than paramedicals, more scientists than the para-scientists, lab technicians, but we don't have that. So not only your scientific manpower is inadequate, but the support which your scientists and engineers should get from the second tier is missing completely. So only 1,000 articles are published every year in scientific journals. India, which is only 8 times larger than Pakistan, produces 20,000 journal articles. How many patent applications we file? Only 170 compared to 19,000 by India. What is the high technology exports of Pakistan? 2%. How much is India's high technology exports? 25%. So you can see that because you don't have the scientific manpower, you don't have the incentives, and you do not have the scientific outcomes. Now we come to the higher education, and Dr. Afzal has already told you we had a very sound higher education system between 2000 and 2007. The funding was really expanding every year. Thousands of Pakistani professors were being sent to do PhDs at the top universities all over the world. And a lot of new facilities were established. Come 2008, the funding was cut down. All the scholarships for faculty development were withdrawn. Comes the 18th Constitutional Amendment. Now the provinces are struggling to get this Higher Education Commission to themselves, which will be a disaster as far as the country's higher education is concerned. We still have only 8% enrollment ratio compared to 15% in India and 30% in China. I'm not talking of China. China is a completely different world. If I start talking about China, I'll be here all day. Therefore, we are doing a great injustice to something which was really being emulated by other countries. India was trying to form a higher education commission like ours, but now we are destroying it. We are very good in destroying things, but very bad in constructing things. Now we go to the fourth element, which is the link between industry and scientific organization. I think most of you will remember the days when Dr. Salim-uz-Zaman Siddiqui was heading the Pakistan Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. And there were a lot of patents and products which were coming out of PCSIR, which were being commercialized. You go to the PCSIR, it has multiplied in the number of laboratories and the number of scientists, but you ask them how many new commercial products you have come across, and the answer is 0. So whatever we were doing in order to strengthen the links between industry and scientific research is completely disappeared. The only organization which is world-class is the HEG Institute at Karachi, at the Karachi University, and that's also because of Dr. Ataur Rahman. So one individual can make a difference. It attracts PhD students from all over the world. Now I come to the question for culture. Now we are an Islamic country, and we are very proud to be an Islamic country. But Islam has also produced the biggest scientific inventions and also the scientists of the world. There is no contradiction between inquiry and religion. But there are people in Pakistan who question scientific inquiry. So the culture of inquisitiveness, culture of finding new products and new discoveries is under serious threat. And that is something which will not take us forward, but it will take us backward. The algebra, I mean, I don't have to repeat to this audience the accomplishments of the scientists. And even Turkey and Iran today are producing first-rate scientific work. And they are Muslim countries. And I don't see, I'm not a scholar in Islamic jurisprudence, but I don't see there any contradiction. But this is what is happening, which is worrisome. So what is the way forward? The way forward is that we should concentrate at least on 5 areas for the future. We cannot do everything because of the constraints which I have pointed out to you. It is impossible that we will be able to do everything. But for the economic growth, there are 5 areas. One is agriculture, the second is water, third is energy, fourth is health, fifth is education. If we can concentrate our resources on these 5 areas, I'm quite confident that Pakistan can take off. Why agriculture? Agriculture is connected both with food security as well as rural advancement and poverty alleviation. So if you increase the productivity of land by giving them new tools, new seeds, new ways of doing things. That will increase the incomes of the poor. It will make you food self-sufficient and will also alleviate poverty in the country. So we have to pay attention to agriculture. And agriculture also provides the raw materials for your manufacturing sector. So if you have higher cotton production, your textile industry will also take off because it is dependent on agriculture. The second area is that we are very fortunate that the British left us with the largest irrigation system in the world. Any other country in the world would have made a use of this vast irrigation system to have the highest yields per acre. But we have yields per acre which are lower than the non-irrigated areas in the other parts of the world. So we are not actually making good use of our water resources. And the water resources are being wasted. 50% of water from the Indus and the tributaries and the other rivers actually does not contribute towards the agricultural production, but it is lost out during the transmission, distribution, and the excess water goes into the ocean. So here's a very scarce resource, but we are not doing it because we don't have the right pricing for it. It is politicized that only the influential landlords can get all the water, which they waste, and the tailenders, who are the poor people, cannot get any water from the same water course. So this is why we should try to do some innovations and some new ideas as far as the inefficiency and waste in water is concerned. The third area is energy, and you all know what the condition of our energy sector is. We had abundance of gas, but we haven't utilized the gas to the advantage for the economy. We are now short of gas, we are short of electricity. Till recently, and many of you are electrical engineers, we did not have the network operation center. So the load shedding was being done like that, without any planning or without any scientific, calculations. So here are industries which, if they were alerted that you will get the load shedding from 12 to 2, they could plan their processes. But all of a sudden, because we didn't have a knock, these load sheddings took place on schedule. We have 30 to 40% losses in transmission and distribution in electricity. It's not generation which we are lacking. It is when it reaches the consumer. And Karachi Electric is a very good example. Karachi Electric says if your area pays all the bills on time, you will have no load shedding. But if that area is not paying their bills, we will have load shedding in that area. So what is the incentive? All the mohalle walas say, कि भाई bill दो वरना यहाँ हमें बिजली नहीं मिलेगी. Now that is why Karachi has the least problem as far as load shedding is concerned. You have smart meters today all over the world which you can install, and they cannot be tampered with. So there is a technology which is available, but nobody wants to use that technology. So that is what we need in energy. The fourth area is on education. Now, education, I don't have to convince this audience. There are a lot of innovations which have taken place. Distance education, virtual universities, MOOCs, Salman Khan's Academy, which is popular all over the world, translated into many languages, can make education available at your doorstep with very little cost. But we still have the culture of our schools and universities where bricks and mortar institutions are given preference to the virtual universities and distance education. This is an area where we can actually penetrate the entire rural Pakistan and increase the enrollment ratios without much of expenditure. Finally is the health, where you don't have to have high-powered consultants sitting in every district. You can get the images to the consultant sitting at Khan University from Jacobabad, and the consultant can tell you, and Dr. Mumtaz is here from King Edward, he will tell you how powerful this telehealth is. India is doing that, and they are also bringing about very cost-effective devices for EKG, for example, which are mobile, which are cost-effective, which can go everywhere, and they are now exporting it to other African countries. So why can't we do that and try to bring health in the reach of the poor? So these are the 5 areas which I think science, technology, and innovation can make a lot of difference. And I have a whole chapter in this, which is I have reproduced from the Economist magazine of last week, where it says that the future is going to be very different from what the past has been. And if we don't prepare ourselves for this future, then I think we are going to be left very much behind. Because industrialization is no longer the way China has progressed, because today the industrialization is very much dispersed in a supply chain. So Apple telephone is assembled in China, but only 5% of its value originates from China. 95% is from the United States, from Mexico, from Korea, from Japan, from India, from all over the world. So this whole concept of taking cotton and ending up with the garments is no longer going to be true anymore in the future industrialization. And therefore we have to reorganize ourselves if we have to meet the challenges for the future. Let me end by saying that what we require in the future is more knowledge-intensive economy. It's not going to be capital. It is not going to be natural resources like oil. There was a time when Pakistanis used to wish, oh, let's get more oil, let's get more gas and we'll become rich. That's bunkum. That's no longer true. You need more knowledge. And that is what the world is going to be in the 21st century. And those countries which can invest in knowledge, science, and innovation is going to get the benefit. This will not only be good for the economy, but also for the society. If you continue with these income inequalities, where only one segment of the population is getting rich and everybody else is getting poorer because of the present neglect of science and technology, then there will be social explosion. Unemployed graduates are joining the Taliban, they are joining the criminals, they are joining social miscreants. We have to create opportunities for them. Thank you very much.